Good morning to veterans, their families, and citizens of New Bedford and our surrounding area. My guests that I invite are to bring information and services that you may need or your families may need, and you'll have people you can talk to that can help you with them. This morning we have Lynn Levine, and she is a program manager for services at the Red Cross.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining me. It's been a while since I've had someone from there in.
Well, I'm glad to be able to come down today.
So, what type of work have you done?
I have worked in nonprofits for a while. I've done some international work with the United Nations, with UNICEF in their communications department, and some conservation work with a local animal welfare organization.
Oh, my daughter's going to love to hear that. She
Really?
loves animals.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've always been in Massachusetts?
No, I'm originally from New Jersey.
Oh, okay. Okay. What brought you to Mass?
One of the jobs that I just
of the
spoke of,
jobs,
yeah. I mean, I thought they're offering me a job on Cape Cod. Who wouldn't want to go?
Better, right? That's summer, winter, and spring.
Year-round.
Yeah. Your education, where did you get your education?
I got a master's degree in international relations with a focus in international law and human rights at Seton Hall in New Jersey.
In New Jersey.
Their School of Diplomacy.
Mm-hmm. So that's good. You've been a busy girl. And have you traveled any because of your position?
This job is primarily, we're the American Red Cross, so we do some travel internally when there's an emergency, so we do deploy. So I've been to Louisiana for the hurricanes, and then internally it's mostly, since the programs that we work on are for Massachusetts, for the Red Cross of Massachusetts. So I do a lot of travel around this great state now.
They have helped a lot all over the country with all the problems we've had, weather-wise especially.
It's an amazing cooperative, I mean, it's one organization that provides essential emergency services throughout the country.
Now, when do they start this particular area of a program?
Service to Armed Forces for the American Red Cross is one of the foundational programs, so it goes back to the mid-1800s. In fact, it's part of the congressional charter on which we work. So the services that we've been providing to armed forces, deployed, local, and their families and veterans has been over 100 years, 150 years. What I think you're asking me is locally,
That too.
well, because the Red Cross has, with the Department of Defense, basically been trying to always improve the work that we do, the services that we provide. They recently, about a year and a half ago, started reorganizing the internal emergency services departments so that we could focus more intensely on the services we provide to the military and their families.
Are they appreciative of it? Do they come to you? Or do they know about you enough?
Yes, yes, and yes, actually.
Okay.
So obviously an essential part of the work we do is letting the communities know that we provide services, because if people don't know, then they can't take advantage of them. One of our primary goals is to educate the military community and their families about our services, and one of the ways we do that is through the Yellow Ribbon program that's offered by the military. So we literally show up during pre-deployment events, readiness checks while people are deployed, and then demobilization, and we're talking to families and to the military about the services that we do provide, which include the emergency services, 24-hour a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year line. And that's a nationwide number, so people can have emergency services for the military any time of the day or night. And then we're also working directly with the community support organizations that provide services to veterans. So we're working with the Department of Veterans Services out of Boston, and with some of the organizations that they provide to help with the services that are not necessarily emergency related, but they are crisis and needed, yes.
Yeah. And now this includes family as well as the person that's in the military.
Yes.
How do you help the children in any particular way special?
The children are considered families. If we get a phone call from someone whose father was in the Navy and is looking for assistance, we can either direct them to our emergency line, in which case a lot of times we get, more recently we're getting requests for financial assistance because people are having some hard times.
Well, it's still not working properly.
Right.
It's not their fault, but they just can't seem to hit something.
And it's across the board, not just
Yeah.
with veterans, but with military too.
Yeah.
For some reason, the amount of money they're making is not, it's not managing to cover the expenses that they have.
It's under that class of comfort, yeah.
It is. So we get calls for people who need to pay a utility bill or to cover rent because they've gotten behind as a result of medical bills or something like that. So we can either provide outright grants, or the Service to Armed Forces arm of the Red Cross will help provide grants, and we administer these financial services on behalf of the military aid societies. Sometimes we'll get calls that require more advocacy and partnership, taking advantage of the referrals that we know. So the Red Cross has a bit of clout when it comes to reaching out to community members. We got a call recently where the widow of a veteran she was in exactly this position where she couldn't pay she was a month behind in rent because her medical bills had inflated for that month, and it was actually a result of the living situation. So the apartment she was living in was making her sick, and then she was behind a month. So we not only connected her with her local veteran service officer for the town that she lived in, which was Lynn. We also were able to actually act as a caseworker and case advocate for her for the rental agency and sort of connect her with the services that she needed.
And she took advantage of it.
Oh, yes.
She didn't refuse
I like to
anything.
think that we're a full-service concierge.
Yeah. And most of the information that comes to you is from the person themselves when they approach you.
Yes, we wouldn't know that someone needed assistance unless they came to us.
And I asked about the veterans' information. They're not particularly for the vet. That's for people that need help as well.
Which service is that?
As far as being a veteran, they don't have to be. You'll help anyone that comes to you.
Well, the Service to Armed Forces program helps people that are military families.
Oriented,
so that
okay.
includes, anyone who's attached to the National Guard, an active duty station, or a veteran or their family, yes.
Okay. So there's enough area. How many in your office? How many work with you?
In our headquarters, we have seven chapters throughout Massachusetts with headquarters in Boston. And at the headquarters, I'd say we have about 30, 35.
So you've got
employees.
a good span of people to take the information and meet people
Well,
and talk
as
to
far as Service to Armed Forces, it's myself leading the program in the region with a good staff of volunteers. I have about 50 to 60 volunteers who help me.
Wonderful.
So the number 35 that I gave you was people who handle all of our Red Cross services.
Yeah, all of them come to you. Them.
Not necessarily. The Red Cross is broken into 5 different areas of service, and that would be disaster response, service to armed forces, international services, our health and safety trainings, and our blood services. So we handle humanitarian services. The blood services is biomedical, and they are handled outside of a different office. But in the headquarters in Boston, that number of 35 represents humanitarian and educational programs. But the number that serves the veterans in the military would be a part of my program, and we have about 50 people.
Oh, that's a good amount.
And that doesn't include the people at the call centers. Those are the people who are literally answering the
veterans
phones.
organizations, do you have any affiliation with them at all? Do they help you at all?
Not official affiliations, but we work very closely with the Department of Veterans Services. We work very closely with the Greater Boston Veterans Health Service, so we're working directly with representatives at all, actually 5 of the Veterans Administration hospitals. So one of our core services also is providing volunteers to work in the hospital to provide the services that supplement and complement the work that they need to happen there.
Now the volunteers, that's strictly volunteer.
Strictly volunteer.
No compensation or anything.
No, the Red Cross is about 90, forgive me if I'm off by a percent, but I believe it's 97% volunteer driven.
You've got a handful of people to handle, haven't you?
It's very rewarding, actually.
Yeah, they come from all walks of life.
They do. We have kids, students, veterans themselves. We have housewives and people who are looking to complement the work that they have experience in. So it's very rewarding to work with people who are committed to a mission, and we're all working together.
Have you approached any of the colleges for the nursing department where they would have good people for volunteering work?
We have actually, both in Service to Armed Forces and in our emergency disaster department, because the casework is one of our core services, and people with masters of social work are perfect for this line of service.
Yeah.
So we actually, right now in the office, not in Service to Armed Forces, but in our general casework, have about 3 year-long interns from one of the local schools. Yes,
because that's good experience. That's on the job, as they call it.
It's great experience for them, and it's
help for you. Yeah.
Excellent for us to have that kind of help.
How many people do you, in let's say a month, you have to help?
I can give you a number. I'm closer to an
Vaguely.
annual, actually.
Actually.
We're helping around 2,500 people a year statewide with emergency services to armed forces.
That's just Massachusetts?
That's just Massachusetts.
And there's that many people that need help?
A lot of them are deployed, and most of that number right now represents our deployed service members, and that represents families who need to be in touch because of an emergency that happened back home. So if you're in the military, you would know that we offer the emergency communications service, and much of that falls under that. But we do provide, I can't give you exact numbers, I think 25% actually of the work that we provide is veterans support.
Yeah. Because we have the service officers from the organizations that do their best, but they're limited. You're more overall in a lot of areas.
Massachusetts has one of the best safety nets for veterans in general, and I'm really pleased and honored to be able to work with other community support, military support organizations. There's the Family Assistance Centers that are arms of the Department of Defense that work out of the bases, and they're placed locally. You have one locally in Taunton. There's one on Joint Base Cape Cod. There's one up at Hanscom and Wellesley, and they're all over the state. We work with them directly. The Department of Veterans Services has a fairly recently deployed 2 complementary programs, the SAVE and the SHARP teams. They're peer mentor driven programs that work basically on the streets, finding veterans who are living on the streets and homeless, and rather than requiring them, where formerly what would happen is a veteran would be required to be alcohol and drug free for a minimum of about 140 days before they could get into supportive housing and access the services available. What Massachusetts is now doing is they're providing homes and services at the same time.
Okay.
It's an excellent program. The peer mentors are fantastic. They themselves are veterans, and they're working on the ground, and we work closely with them to provide them with donations of basic needs items that one would need if they're living on the street or transitioning off the street. It's an amazing program.
That's the main goal right now that they're really leaning on, is the homelessness.
Yes, it is.
There's too many on the road.
Yes, it
is.
is.
Too many of them are ill and need a place or someone to talk to so they can get off the streets.
One of the more recent statistics, and it's about I think it's 2 or 3 years old, so I am certain that the numbers are better than this. On any given night, I think it was a June 2000, and don't quote me, 2009, there were 2,000 veterans living on the street on any given one night in June.
Shouldn't be.
No, it shouldn't. But
not in a country like this one.
Again, I'm very proud to be in Massachusetts and to say that
it's considered one of the best states for
it certainly
vets
is.
And anyone that is in help. Yeah, so we're very proud of our city. Have you had anything to do with the Veterans Transition House? Have you been there, talked to Jim Reed? He's the director.
No, I haven't.
And
maybe
he
after
has
this
a
I can...
live-in, and they, like you say, they have to come in and stay dry for so many months.
I'm not
he's
familiar
on my
with that one.
TV right now.
Is
I
he
taped
really?
him last week.
I'd be interested in getting that
So
information
maybe you
from
can
you.
get his,
I would love to. Yes.
talk to Sue and see if we can get you that, and you can take a look at it.
That'd be great.
And it might be another extension for you, or at least
it would be
input
another
between you and him.
Another door where we could provide services if they need.
It wouldn't hurt,
No, absolutely
not at all, because he was talking about the homelessness, and they're really leaning into it. And he's got starting his 7th home for the vets, and from what he said, they're doing great. And now they're at the stage, if they're in about the third stage. The first one is the opening, where they got to give in. One man, he said, and I can quote him because it's not a secret, he tried 12 times to clean himself up and get back on the road. And he said he came into the VTH house and he said he had to thank them. First time in his life he's gone for 4 months without any problems because they're there for him. So in other words, it would help relate because you can inform him and he can inform you, and it would work out. Another end for people.
Another really interesting thing is that we reach out to these people and we provide opportunities for volunteering for them. I can tell you that volunteering with a mission organization such as the American Red Cross provides such a level of satisfaction, and particularly for service members who are returning. They're trained well, they've got the experience, they understand the sense of emergency, and then they're committed to help. So letting people know that they're valued and they can be even more valued by working with us.
They come back with a lot of stress.
Yeah.
And that's one of the main things that makes them avoid getting back into the swing of things.
One of the more concrete services we provide is it's a series of reconnection workshops for returning military. It's actually more targeted towards the families, because the families are the ones who need to identify the problems and pretty much need to be prepared for whatever situation is going to greet them when
unexpected,
when their family member,
relapse,
spouse, daughter
like
comes home, right? And they're free, and we offer them to
because it does ruin a lot of families.
It does,
and
unfortunately.
It takes a couple of years at minimum to really say that they feel. And then if they're wounded, they've already changed how they have to live medically and everything else, and it's tough on a family.
It's a very challenging situation to come home.
And little children don't understand why Dad